Hoop Ball podcast listeners. Are you a fantasy expert and want to write or podcast for Hoop Ball? Do you have aspirations of covering a team? Are you a master of sales and want to earn some cash on the phones? Well, we've got good news. Hoop Ball's recruiting. If you think you have what it takes, hit us up at Hoop Ball Fantasy on Twitter or by emailing teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com. Again, that's at Hoop Ball Fantasy on Twitter or emailing teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the Hoop Ball DFS Today podcast. I am your host, Mike Patra, and I'll be flying solo to break down these 4-game slate to begin the playoffs. It is Monday, August 17th. I'm recording this the night before, but we have a pretty good understanding of a lot of the news, information. We got our lines, everything else. So we're prepared, and we had these slates early. So plenty of time to research, plenty of things to get into. Shouldn't be too long of a podcast, only 4 games, and I'm running solo. But nonetheless, it will be packed with information, fades, pivots, value. I think we have all of that available. So I'm really excited about this one. I'm pumped. But before we jump into anything, guys, just a quick little shout out to our presenting sponsors, Manscaped over there. These guys are absolutely fantastic. Please check them out. And when you do, use the promo code HoopBall20, that's HOOPBALL20. If you do that, you'll get 20% off your entire order plus free shipping. So check them out. If you're looking for a new trimmer, I would look at the Lawnmower 3.0. This thing is absolutely fantastic. Ceramic blades, has a little light so you can see what you're doing, just in case you're, maybe a vampire, you want to shave in the dark. Whatever it may be, check them out, guys. They are absolutely fantastic. And for those who did enter into our DFS contest on Friday, we do apologize. It was kind of a spur of the moment one that we had the green light for last minute. Unfortunately, it did not fill up, and it was just a private contest. So if the private contest does not fill, it does not go. But nonetheless, we are running it back this Wednesday. We will be having another Hoop Ball DFS Today contest, and there's a grand prize. So check us out. Jump in there. You'll be able to compete against a lot of other listeners, some of our experts and pros over here. I'll be in there. Santino will be in there. I'm sure we'll have a couple other guys, whether it's Brent and Steve, Aaron, Dave might jump in. We'll have a lot of fun in there. I like it when Dan jumps in there as well. But first place gets a nice little subscription over there at our other presenting sponsor, MyBookie. You guys already know that we are partnered with these guys. We absolutely love working with them because it goes hand in hand with what we do over here at Hoop Ball between our gaming section and then now over here at the DFS section. We're big on the gambling over here. So check them out. Go visit MyBookie when you sign up for them. If you don't win it, so hey, maybe you wait a couple days, enter the contest, try to get the free one. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's worth it nonetheless, regardless. Sign up, use the promo code HoopBall. They'll match deposit bonus, and it's well worth it, guys. Awesome site. You can do parlays. You can bet every single sport on there. Active lines, live game bets, everything. So go check them out. But we have some games to get into, and the first one is going to tip off at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Utah versus Denver. As far as injuries are concerned, Will Barton and Gary Harris are both still out for Denver. And then Mike Conley just left the bubble today. This is getting recorded on Sunday for the birth of his child. So he's not going to be here probably for maybe even the whole first round with the quarantine and having to come back in and everything like that. I'd be kind of shocked if it is, but we'll see. And then Ed Davis is also out as well. Justin Wright-Foreman is not with the team. But that doesn't really matter. He's not necessarily in the rotation. As far as a game total, we have a 215.5 game total with Denver being favored by 4.5. So this is one of the lower game totals on the 4-game slate. Boston being the second lowest, but nonetheless, there's going to be some decent value in here, some good plays, some good pivot plays, and it's early, so we'll have all the news, we'll have all the starting lineups, and I expect a fair amount of ownership to go to this game. It's simply, like I said, for a lot of the value. Can't go wrong with it. But with Mike Conley out, Bogdanovich out, we've seen this situation a few times already. And I think there's a few obvious spots that we want to look at. Donovan Mitchell, I think, is the one that everyone's going to gravitate towards right away, and rightfully so. Has a 29.9% usage rate with these guys off the floor, averaging 1.8 DK points per minute. The price tag, it's fair. 8K, Denver's D, it's solid. I mean, it's a lot better, obviously, when you have, Gary Harris out there, so he's not going to be with the team. And Mitchell, he's done okay against him. 39.2 minutes average in 3 games against Denver this season. He's averaging about 35.8. So he's not a bad option. I think there's a few other guys around that 8K range I'd rather play. But still, with Conley off the floor, he's going to handle the ball. He's going to have the ball in his hands, and he definitely gets a slight uptick. The guy I'm looking at is also at the guard position, and it's been everyone's favorite, value play, I think, for a lot of the bubble. This is Jordan Clarkson. He just continues to just thrive and soak up all this usage in that second unit. He's averaging 26.1% usage rate with these guys off the floor for about 0.93 DK points per minute. Conley's out. I mean, this pricing came out before the Conley news did, so we could take advantage of that. He's only 3,800. He was getting up to the 5K price tag in the bubble restart before the playoffs, and for some reason he kind of just dropped all the way down. He was 5,200. So we're getting a significant discount. I expect him to be an extremely chalky play. He's great value, but it's great chalk. You can't go wrong with this. We got to expect the shot attempts will probably be at least in the double digits, anywhere between 10 and 14. With that kind of usage, this price tag, I don't really care about the matchup. Sign me up. I'm good to go with some Jordan Clarkson on this one. And then the other value play that we could look at would be Royce O'Neal. I mean, he doesn't have a high usage rate. He's not going to command a ton of shot attempts. But with Bogdanovich out, with Conley out, I mean, this guy's going to be in their starting lineup. He's going to play 30 to 35, probably even more. He's a minutes workhorse guy. He can get up to those high 30s too. And then once he's up there, he has the opportunity for the double-digit rebounds and the fun stuff, couple steals, couple blocks. But at 3,500, it's another great source of value in this game. And I know I'm going to have at least one of Royce O'Neal, Jordan Clarkson. I'm going to have some sort of value from Utah in most of my lineups. If you can even roll both these guys, and I'd be perfectly okay with that. I mean, it's just good chalk value, especially for your cash games. If you want to switch up and go for a couple other pivots, we'll get to another value play in a little while I'm interested in that I think makes for a solid pivot. But can't go wrong with eating the chalk on these kinds of guys. We'll keep looking. I guess another option we have is Rudy Gobert, 7,700. It's a fair price tag. He's not somebody that I'm going to be going overboard on. I think if I'm looking at one of the mid-tier centers, that's the guy I would look to. Otherwise, I might be spending up to Embiid or going down to a value play that we'll get to in a little bit. Otherwise, I think Rudy, he's done okay in this matchup. He doesn't really, dominate. He's averaging about 41 DK points in 39 minutes. So as you can see, Utah's played big minutes, averaged going against Denver. I believe they had one game go to overtime. So that definitely impacts a lot of that. But we're kind of seeing what the point minute production would be. I mean, these guys at most, we'd probably expect about 39 minutes in 38 minutes, even in a shortened rotation type of game. 7,700, I don't hate it. I don't love it. He's definitely in play. I'm not going to cross him off. But the only other guy I think, other than Clarkson, other than O'Neal, I'd be looking at is Joe Ingles with just the increased ball handling responsibility he's going to have with Conley out. He's going to probably play 30 to 34 minutes minimum. Not a huge usage rate, 17.2, averages about 0.85. So I'd probably rather, go down to look for the value, go with the O'Neal or the Clarkson. But if you happen to land on him, 5,300, I don't mind it. It makes a ton of sense. I don't think I'd play all three of these guys. Just a little bit too much Utah exposure. But if you're maybe trying to get a little bit of a game stack, I don't mind getting 2 or 3 of them in there. So that's probably it for me. I'm not going to be going to anybody else. A lot of those other guys were just value that we were getting with the starters out, like Tony Bradley. So all set with that. I'll just leave it to those 3 main guys and maybe, kick in a little bit of Mitchell and a little Gobert here and there. Mitchell's probably the last guy I'm going to be looking to put in my lineups on that team, though. Sliding over to Denver. So we know with the Gary Harris and Will Barton news what the starting lineups most likely look like. We should continue to see Michael Porter Jr., Torrey Craig will be at the 2, Millsap at the 4, Jokic at the 5, Jamal Murray at the 1. With all that being said, Denver, even without Mike Conley, is going to probably be a slower paced game. It's not going to be anything massive as far as a game total. But we got some fair price tags. Michael Porter Jr. at 7,100. He's definitely going to be the elephant in the room. I expect with, now Jamal Murray's back. Jokic is going to be in playoff form. He's not going to be in just coasting bubble form. We're probably going to be looking at seeing veterans. Maybe Paul Millsap starts to see his minutes increase slightly. So I think we're going to start to see some of these shot attempts that Porter Jr. was thriving on in the bubble. There was a couple games against Utah. Between the games of Utah and OKC, he had a minimum of 16 shot attempts over 4 games, upwards of 19. And then I think we're probably going to be looking at more of like the 10 to 11, 12 range with all these starters healthy and playoffs now here. Veterans probably seeing an extended run. Main guy I just said, speaking of that, and I think it's a good segue, is veterans getting extended run. It might be Paul Millsap. He was a guy that has been taking it easy and coasting all throughout the entire season. And then now we got into the bubble. He still kind of coasted. He sat out a few games. Well, he did all that for a reason, to make sure he maintained his health and he could play as many minutes as possible in the playoffs. Now, do I think he's going to come out here and play 37 minutes? Not a chance. They still got good backups. Jeremy Grant is fantastic. But I think we're probably looking at like 27 to 30 minutes. And if that's the case at 5K, I think this is a great spot for him. Going to probably draw the likelihood of like a guy like Royce O'Neal. He could take advantage of that situation. So at 5K, he's probably going to be one of my preferred Nuggets to play. Jokic is a great price tag, 8,700. That's the only reason I'm really thinking of him. I really don't love him in this matchup. He's done great in it. He's averaged about 65 DK points in 38.4 minutes. There's one other center, and it's Embiid. We'll get to him in a minute, the reasons why I like him. But, I mean, with Embiid in such a great spot, he's probably going to be pretty chalky. Jokic makes a lot more sense for me in tournaments as he does it as opposed to cash. That's the way I'm going to be looking at it is, nice little tournament fade. That price tag is great. It's under 9K. And like I just said, the reason why it's dipped is because he was kind of just coasting. He was letting Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., a lot of these guys get comfortable, get their shots up during the bubble games, because he knows what his offense, his role in this offense is. He knows what he's doing. He looks like he was in great shape. So 8,700 might not be a bad way to look. Those are probably the two top guys I'd be looking at. Would be the front court, Millsap and Jokic. Probably won't be playing too much Porter Jr. Jamal Murray, 6,500. It's a fair price tag with no Conley there. He has a plus matchup. So I mean, I'm not going to X him out. But I don't think I'm going to be going to Jeremy Grant. I don't think I'll be playing too much Torrey Craig with some of the other value we have. He is down there at 3,500. So maybe if you need a small forward option, you can look at him. But I think I would prefer some of the Utah guys on the other side of the ball a little bit more. So for me, mostly Millsap, Jokic. And then if you wanted to sprinkle in a little bit of Jamal Murray here and there, I'm all for that as well. But probably won't end up with too many shares of him. We'll keep it moving to the next game, the Brooklyn Nets going against the Toronto Raptors. For the Nets, Jamal Crawford. Still dealing with a hamstring strain. He has been ruled out. And then it's really just Patrick McCaw over there for the Raptors. He's been out for quite some time. It doesn't really impact anything. As far as a game total, we have a 222 total. And Toronto is being favored by 9.5 points. So we know the deal here. Brooklyn's basically playing on the back of Karis LeVert. I expect these guys on Brooklyn to get a fair amount of minutes. I don't think that they're going to really limit them. I mean, we kind of saw in that last game when they went against the Trailblazers to try to be the spoilers. They played hard. Karis LeVert absolutely balled out. So, I mean, I don't mind looking at them in the right games, in the game stacks, kind of script scenario. You don't need to go and get, 6 guys from this game. But if you're going to be playing a few of the Raptors and you want to look at a guy like Karis LeVert, that's the type of scenario I would look at him. It's going to be a tough game for Brooklyn. It's going to be a tough defensive matchup for LeVert. The pace, a lot of things are kind of going to be hurting him and going into the wrong direction. But the dude is averaging about 36 DK points against them in 28 minutes. If he's playing 35, 36 minutes or playing like anything like he's been doing with the usage he's been garnering since this whole bubble returned, I'm okay with it. I mean, we're talking over the past 3 games, 61.5, 55, and 45 DK points. So the upside's there. I prefer him over Mitchell, and I'm a GPP player primarily. Why Mitchell's probably a little bit safer, but give me LeVert over Mitchell. There's a couple other guys in that range. I'd probably rather take LeVert over. Jared Allen at 7K. Probably won't end up with too many shares of Jared Allen. He's got a tough matchup. I expect the minutes to be there, but there's a few other guys who I'd rather just maybe pay up for Embiid or go down to somebody else. So I won't really have any Jared Allen. Joe Harris, I think, is an option at 4,700. But outside of Joe Harris and Karis LeVert, I'm not touching Tyler Johnson. I'm not playing Temple. Don't chase Timothy Luau-Cabarro. A lot of those big shooting games he was doing with other people out. Same thing with Chris Chiozza. I'm not touching anybody else from this team. It's basically Karis LeVert. Maybe at if I'm playing 10 lineups, I'd probably have him in 2, maybe 3, 20 to 30% ownership, very light. Not going to go overweight on him. And then a hair's share of a guy like Joe Harris. Sliding over to the Toronto side of the ball. Now, this is a little different. I have some interest in Toronto. There's a lot of good options on here. Kyle Lowry, 7,900. He comes in. That's a great price tag for Kyle Lowry. It's a great matchup. When he's averaging about 44.5 DK points against this team across 39 minutes, it's a smash spot. The only reason I'm not going to get overweight on Kyle Lowry is because his running mate Fred VanVleet I think is underpriced as well, 6,800, and is in just as good of a spot. So I like both these guys a whole lot. Fred VanVleet himself is averaging about 42 DK points across 35 minutes. Sign me up. I'm going to have a ton of exposure to both these guys. If you want to play Pascal Siakam, I wouldn't mind it. 7,500. He's just been struggling to kind of find his way. He's been playing limited minutes in the bubble. So, when you're looking at the past 3 out of the past 4 games in the bubble, he played 28, 29 minutes. I would expect him to be higher than that. It's going to be 34, 35 minimum. But the way he's been struggling, the price tag's down. I think I would just prefer the backcourt over Siakam. Nonetheless, it's a great matchup. So if we get word that the ownership's going to be ridiculously low, and you want to spread some shares over there, I don't mind it. Serge Ibaka, he wasn't listed on the injury report, but he said he's been dealing with some knee soreness. He missed that last game on Friday against Orlando, but I expect him to be in there. But this is time. It's playoffs. I gravitate towards Marc Gasol in this kind of situation, and the situation with it just being playoffs now. We heard Nick Nurse kind of say that once playoffs come around, he's going to limit this rotation to about 8. Maximum he would see is 9. But if we're talking about an 8-man rotation, Marc Gasol should be seeing his minutes probably increase by at least 3 to 5 more minutes, and that's kind of where I have him pegged. Maybe instead of getting that low 20s, we're starting to see 26. 27 minutes from Marc Gasol, possibly even more, all depending on if Ibaka gets into foul trouble or whatever comes there, knees still bothering him. There's a lot of avenues for Marc Gasol to get more minutes. At 4,300, center going against Brooklyn. I love this spot for him. I think it's a smash spot. If you're looking to save some money and you want to go really, really dumpster dive, you don't need to go too far because 4,300 is a great price tag combined with some of the other value that we talked about and will talk about. We have plenty of ways and opportunities to mix and match and get some of these expensive guys that we're looking for. So I'm cool. Sign me up with him. It's going to be Lowry, VanVleet, Marc Gasol for me. You want to sprinkle in a little Norm Powell, I don't mind it. Like I said, limiting that rotation gives him a few extra minutes as well. It's a great matchup. 4,500 is a great price tag for him. So maybe, you can run it back if you wanted to play Karis LeVert and run it back with 2 of these other guys. Might not be a bad idea as a little decent low-owned game stack. I don't see too many people running out, a Fred VanVleet, a Marc Gasol, Karis LeVert mini game stack where you got 3 of them in there from this game with all the other games that we have on as well. That would be GPP. You don't need to go crazy and do that in your cash. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but I would probably reserve that for a GPP. We're about halfway through now. 2 games left on the card. Just another quick shout out to our presenting sponsors over at MyBookie. Go check them out. Use that promo code HoopBall, HOOPBALL. You will get a deposit match, and you will thank me later because this site is fantastic, guys. So you hear everybody over here. We use it for all of our gaming, all of our betting needs. I'm a parlay guy. Doesn't mean I'm good at it, but I still do it because I like to, like you said, like you hear me saying, GPPs, go big or go home. I like to risk it for the biscuit. And I want to turn, a small amount to a big amount. It makes me feel a lot better. Check them out. But let's keep it moving. We have Philadelphia, the 76ers going against the Boston Celtics. For injuries, the Celtics, Romeo Langford, he says questionable. He tore ligaments in his wrist. I doubt he plays. Doesn't really matter. I mean, he's not a huge part, especially of the playoff rotation. And then for the Sixers, we do have some important news. It's Ben Simmons still out with that knee surgery. But then Glenn Robinson is also going to miss the next 7 to 10 days, dealing with an oblique strain. That means something, though, because he was starting to pick up his minutes, starting to get back into game shape after missing some time. So let's talk about this Philly team. Joel Embiid, top of the board, 10-2, expensive price tag for him. But he's my favorite play, honestly. He's the guy I'm spending up for. I'd rather spend 10-2 on Joel Embiid than 11K on Luka. And that's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, it's Boston's a great matchup for centers. He's averaging about 44 DK points at 27 minutes. We have to remember their word was that Embiid will be playing roughly 38 minutes once playoffs start. They plan on riding him, especially now that Ben Simmons is out. They're going to need to. That quote was said when Ben Simmons was playing. So I expect us to see a plethora of Joel Embiid if they need it. He is going to be the backbone of the team. He is going to dominate the usage on this team. Sign me up. I'm good with them. I'll probably be overweight on center shares. Joel Embiid, and then the pivot would obviously be Jokic if you want to get away from him or spend down on Gasol. That's probably the top 3 center plays I'm looking at. Tobias Harris, 7,800, great price tag. He was, seeing a slight discount. He was actually finding his way up over 8K and even in the mid-8s during the bubble. Matchup, he's done well in 34 minutes. He's averaging about 37 DK points. I don't mind it. I wouldn't mind, getting a couple of shares of both these guys. We have to imagine that these two guys lead the team in shot attempts. They lead the team in usage. Probably both have the best opportunity to lead the team in rebounding. So if you want to look at those guys, I especially like Harris because he's also small forward eligible, which is in a position that we generally love too much. So I'm not playing Milton. I'm not playing Richardson. Not the best matchup for those types of guys. Al Horford, if you want to look at, especially with this whole Boston narrative. He's been playing well with the limited minutes he's been given. I don't know if we're going to be seeing 35 to 38 minutes. We like to see Boston go small generally. It'll be a tough matchup for Horford if Tatum's going to be on the floor a lot. So I don't know if I'm going to go overweight on him or underweight. I probably would just best avoid him. I'd rather just stick with Harris, stick with Embiid. And then my value play, Alec Burks. We've been riding him. And I think we could keep doing that, especially with Glenn Robinson out, with Ben Simmons out. A lot of the scoring, a lot of the bench usage, it's going to Burks. And at 3,900, maybe you want to take a pivot away from that Utah value with Jordan Clarkson. Very similar price tag, and it's a very similar role. A guy that's been taking 11, 17, 14, 15 shot attempts over the past 4 games in the bubble, and averaging a little bit over 32 DK points across that span as well. So at 3,900, I think he's a fantastic value play, a guy that I will probably be overweight on. So for me, Sixers, I'm looking at Burks, I'm looking at Embiid, I'm looking at Tobias Harris. I'll probably leave the rest of the guys out of my player pool, make my decisions easier for some other teams. And on the Boston side of things, I'm just not finding myself getting too much Boston. That doesn't mean I don't want to play any of these Boston guys. Kemba Walker will have his minutes limit or minutes restrictions lifted. He could play 30, 35 minutes. And at that price tag of 6,900, I really like that. But I look at Van Vliet. I kind of like Van Vliet a little bit more. They make pivots to each other. If I don't mind Walker, he's probably the guy I'd gravitate towards. And then Tatum, I think 8,500. It's expensive. But if they do try to run that Horford matchup, Tatum will take advantage of that. We've seen him in this matchup already 4 times this season. He's averaging about 37.5 DK points across 33.5 minutes. It's solid. Price tag's hard though, man. At 8,500, you're expecting a big game from him. So maybe we don't necessarily look too much at Tatum. We go with Kemba. We could sprinkle in a little bit of Jaylen Brown. That's usually the guy I prefer over Hayward, especially with Walker back. Hayward's ball handling duties are kind of gonna go and dissipate a little bit. He'll still be able to handle it quite some bit. But for me, I'll probably be looking at Tatum if I have extra money. I don't mind it. But Jaylen Brown and then Kemba Walker. Probably won't end up with too much Marcus Smart at 6,200. There's just so many guards on this slate that I have interest in, especially knowing that I'm probably going to use a few of those for my value spots. And then I'm not touching Daniel Tice going against Joel Embiid. That just does not feel good. Does not sound good. Does not feel good. Does not rub me the right way. It just screams foul trouble. But hey, if that's your prerogative, you can play some Daniel Tice. I like him. I think he's got some actual good game in him. We're flying through this, guys. We only have one game left. It's the Dallas Mavericks going against the LA Clippers. As far as injuries are concerned for Dallas, Courtney Lee out, Kristaps is probable, and Dwight Powell is still out. And for the Clippers, Patrick Beverley questionable, Montrezl Harrell is questionable. He's self-isolating. He's supposed to be done with his quarantine, and Doc Rivers has already kind of said that if he passes his test and he's done quarantining, he'll be ready to play minutes as soon as that's ready. Does that mean he's going to play, his regular allotment of minutes? Maybe, probably not, but he'll be ready to play some sort of minutes. And then Landry Shamet is also questionable. So as far as a game total is concerned, I'm sorry, for that Philly-Boston game, I don't think I gave one. It was a 218.5 game total with a 5.5 point spread, Boston being favored in that one. So that was the second lowest compared to that Utah-Denver one. Now we roll into Dallas-LA, and this one has the highest on the night, 230 game total. Clippers are being favored by 6 points. So we'll start with this Dallas team. Luka Doncic, 11K. I already kind of came out and said I prefer spending up on Joel Embiid, 10-2, $800 less than Luka. I'd rather have Joel. This is a tough matchup for Luka. This kid's special. If you guys listen, you know how much I love this kid. I'm a Dallas fan. I don't think there is a matchup that can really slow him down, but if there is one that can cause him a little bit of problems and give him what you would expect to be maybe a down DFS game, it's going to be this one, going against full run Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. These guys are not going to be limited if they need to. They know who they need to stop to win the series in this game. When we talk about the 3 games they played each other already, Luka's averaging about 51 DK points in 34.5 minutes, which sounds pretty good. But when you're paying 11K, we want a little bit more than that. And I'm sure he'll probably play a little bit more minutes, but I think I just prefer Embiid in this one. If you want to play Luka, hey, I'm not going to knock you. It's Luka Doncic. He's up there. He's at 11K for a reason. The dude's a walking triple-double. But I think I'm going to be gravitating more towards Porzingis in this one at 8,300. I just think this is a great matchup. We've seen plenty of centers take advantage of the Clippers. He's averaging about almost 40 DK points in 31 minutes against the Clippers this season. So probably right smack on value. We can expect him to play 36 minutes if he can handle 36 minutes and stay out of foul trouble. And if especially Montrezl Harrell sits, he should be able to just take advantage of Zubac. And, Zubac has been playing great in the bubble, but he's not going to be able to run out and stretch out to Porzingis. And then even with Harrell's going to be giving up about 5-6 inches on Porzingis. So I'm not looking at Tim Hardaway Jr. at 5,700. I'm a very scoring-dependent player. He should play a boatload of minutes. Don't get me wrong. We'll probably see his minutes up at 38. So if you want to look at him in cash games, I think that's where I'd prefer to play him. But with all the starters healthy, with Porzingis and Doncic both in there, he doesn't leave a ton of a big piece of the pie left necessarily for Hardaway. Then you got Dorian Finney-Smith. He's been showing up with a couple of random big games. Not the type of guy I generally target or gravitate towards. Maxi Kleber, same thing. I think they're going to see a lot of Porzingis at center tonight. Kleber will probably be fairly limited. And then Seth Curry, maybe he's the other guy that you want to look at. We already talked about a bunch of cheap guards that we can look at between Jordan Clarkson, Alec Burks, where Curry falls right in that range at 3,700. So you can take a look at him. I prefer those other 2 guys over him, but I'm not going to cross him out of my player pool necessarily. I expect next to no ownership on him, and he's always good for a big game here and there. Wouldn't shock me. For the Clippers, on the Clippers side of the ball, Kawhi Leonard at 9,800. Kawhi is no doubt one of the best players in the NBA. He's averaging 52.4 DK points against them in 3 meetings this year, 34 minutes per game. So at 9,800, it's fair price tag. I think I'd rather prefer just to spend down at Paul George if I'm playing one of those 2 guys at 8,100, who's also doing pretty fairly well, averaging 45 DK points in 33 minutes. So give me Paul George over Kawhi Leonard for the discount of 1,700. If money's not a thing for you and you could just go out there and spend it like that, then go for it. Lou Williams, 6K. It's a fair price tag. Not my favorite option. I think I'd probably be leaning more towards just playing Paul George. And then we have to keep an eye on this news. If Patrick Beverley is out, I don't mind looking at another value guard that we have, which is Reggie Jackson, 3,600. I think that's a great price tag for him. We were just, seeing it get to the 5Ks, very similar to Clarkson during the bubble. And yes, that was with, Lou Williams and Patrick Beverley out, but nonetheless, even with just Patrick Beverley out, he should play a fair amount of minutes. I would expect anywhere between 20 to 26 minutes. They're going to limit their rotation. He's one of their best bench players outside of Harrell and Lou Will. So I don't mind looking at Jackson. I expect him to have next to no ownership compared to those other two value plays I was mentioning. So keep your eye on him. It's worth mentioning and monitoring. And Zubac at 4,100. Keep an eye on the Harrell news. It's almost very similar to what I was just saying. I mean, he's basically playing 20, 25 minutes every single game during the bubble with Harrell out, and I think that's probably what we can expect. With Harrell out, I mean, if Harrell in, we might be looking at a couple 16 to 18-minute games in there. He's been playing well. So 4,100, I don't mind it, but I feel a lot more comfortable with Harrell out. He's averaging almost 30 DK points against this Dallas team across 20 minutes in 3 meetings this season. So those are the guys I'm mainly looking at. It's going to be Paul George, Reggie Jackson, Zubac. Probably not going to play too much Leonard. I probably won't play too much Williams. I'm not going to cross them off out of my player pool or fade them completely. Just not exactly riding the wave of them. And then if you wanted to play a little bit of Marcus Morris, if you happen to land on it around your lineup, sure. Not a guy I'm going out of my way to play and gravitating towards. So, and that's it. That is the entire slate, the 4-game slate for playoffs. Ran through it solo in just about 30 minutes. So we're going to have to, monitor a lot of the news. We're going to have some early value to immediately plug and play if we feel like we don't want to wait and see on some of this Clipper news later on in the night. Just a quick little brief run through again, just to let people know kind of the guys I have circled. Maybe I guess you could call it the spark notes real fast. As far as value is concerned, some of my top value plays I will be looking at will be like Jordan Clarkson, Royce O'Neal. I'll be playing a fair amount of Alec Burks, a fair amount of Marc Gasol. Very, very limited on Torrey Craig. I just don't love that point per minute ceiling. If we hear Patrick Beverley's out, I'll have some shares of Reggie Jackson at 3,600 himself as well. As far as some of like the mid-tier guys that I think are just good plays or slightly underpriced. I do like Fred VanVleet an awful lot, 6,800. I think that's a good play. Same thing with Kyle Lowry at 79. I think he is slightly underpriced. Karis LeVert, I think, is in play for GPP, 7,600. A little bit more risk associated for him in cash games where I'd probably just rather play one of those Toronto guys. I think Tobias Harris at 78 or 7,900 is a fair price tag in this Boston matchup. He should be able to hold his own, especially if this game stays close. Probably not playing anybody mid-tier on Denver. I consider Jokic probably a higher tier. And then Paul George, I think, is an excellent play at 8,100 over there on the Clippers. And Porzingis is serviceable. And if you're trying to run it back and get somebody, I don't mind him. And the expensive guys I'm looking at, it's going to be Embiid, Jokic, and then that's probably it. I'm not going to be playing any Doncic. I think I'm going to fade Doncic on this slate. Take it off the chin if he just happens to triple-double on my face. But that is all I have for you guys. If you could, and if you'd like to, go follow me on Twitter. You can find me at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. And then if you guys could, give us a nice thumbs up, a rate and review. You can find the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube. We're all over the place. It means a lot to us seeing the good ratings, the good reviews, hearing what we're doing right. That way we continue it and get it even a little bit better, fine tweak everything, and just provide the best product for you guys. We were trying to just take down some cash games, some tournaments with you, celebrating all together. It feels good, but we got it here. We got playoffs. We're finally ready to get some limited rotations, some real basketball. We don't necessarily need to know these G League names anymore. It's going to just come down to just matchups and rotations, limited rotations. So if you can nail that down, you guys will be all right. As always, we will be back tomorrow to break down the Tuesday card. But I think that's Santino. I think Santino's running it. Yeah, I think we got some Santino and Steve action. I got to get the schedule down, guys. I apologize. But thank you guys for listening. As always, for everybody over at Hoopball, you guys take care. Let's go out there and crush some tournaments.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.